Welcome. Today we're talking with Justin Fischer, CEO and co-founder of RiskScout, a system for growing and staying compliant. Justin, welcome and thank you for joining us at today's Banker Digest.
Thank you, Larry. Right after a big, long holiday weekend, it's great to sit down and talk about banking again.
Great. All right. Well, good. So, Justin, let's get started with an overview of your company, RiskScout.
Sure. So, Larry, I've spent about over 2 decades now building software for banks and credit unions in the U.S. And we founded RiskScout about 3.5 years ago. And primarily we're looking at the state and nature of compliance, but also just in general, institutions needing to grow their top line while being more efficient on their bottom line. So we actually built more of a hybrid system than what you would say is compliance or BSA, something that allows you to open up new markets while also making your internal processes, business process automation, more efficient.
All right, great. Thank you. Banking as a service, could you level set us on what is banking as a service?
Yeah, so there's been a lot of conversation about fintech, the financial technology, which could be any number of massive companies, about $1 trillion market. And then banking as a service is a bit of a subset of fintech, which almost everything is a subset of fintech these days. Banking as a service is really, from our definition, when an institution, a financial institution, is going to offer banking services. So that might be checking accounts, loans, it could be business services, it could be payroll, wires, all those sort of things, payments. Out to a third party who is then offering it to a fourth party, right? And therefore, someone like Chime, who's going to be hosted off of a financial institution, is offering that to the Chime's customers. And so banking as a service can be any of over a dozen different types between Chime, Acorns, things like Robinhood even is a banking as a service type of vendor. So you see them in all kinds of different flavors, and they're changing quite often. Now, one challenge is if you're a financial institution, they're generally competition to you, right? Because they're disintermediating your end customer who wants something. But if you learn how to embrace it and work and cooperate with fintechs, it can be a huge, not only competitive advantage over your other traditional institutions, but it can also be a great partnership for innovation, but really good top line revenue as well. Now, of course, there are compliance things to consider, and there have been a few institutions who've had their hands slapped. So that's right in the middle of banking as a service, is being able to offer these things. And if you're a financial institution, there's over 9,000 of them, in the U.S. banks and credit unions. You may find it a bit of a struggle to grow these days. You can't just open up branches. You can't just do what you've been doing. You've got to look either digital or something like banking as a service.
Great. Thank you, Justin. So I understand you'll be hosting with Abrigo a banking as a service webinar on July 13th. What will you be discussing at this upcoming webinar?
Yeah, really excited about that. We've got some great friends over at Abrigo. They're one of our partners. They've been around the space for over 2 decades. And in July, we're hosting I think a one of a kind for them, especially. We usually get thousands of institutions that come. I'm gonna host with a gentleman over there named Kevin. He's a big advisory guy, knows a lot of the background on compliance and higher risk. And we're just going to lay out, really, you could be a novice institution, or you could be a very experienced, fintech banking as a service institution. We're going to give you tips and tricks, what this is all about. We really work heavily with examiners. FFIC just recently worked with the NCUA. So we're going to share some of that feedback and best practices. We are very big on no sales pitch, lots of good information you can take, policies and procedures, things you can download. So hopefully if you're an institution either in the C-suite and you're looking at the strategy, or you're in the compliance side, you're going to get something out of this in July.
Great. How long will the webinar be?
We usually run them about 40 or 45 minutes, and we like to have lots of time for questions. So I've always been told we don't have enough time to talk about compliance. So we will make sure that we keep it short and sweet with everything you need, and then plenty of time for questions. And then our staff is always available if you are digging into this yourself.
Great. Thank you, Justin. Appreciate you spending time with today's Banker Digest to help us better understand banking as a service, as well as the opportunities it presents for new markets. Again, thank you.
Thank you, Larry. This is great that you do this for bankers. We all don't have enough time these days, and so to get these snippets and understandings of what people are talking about is very helpful. Thank you for what you do.
Great. You're welcome. So in closing, thank you for joining today's Banker Digest. If you have additional questions for Justin or would like to learn more about the Banking as a Service webinar, please see the links in his bio.